Well, a lot of people that I'm talking to are concerned that things like unrealized capital gains taxes and wealth taxes will eventually come for them. One comment I do see from time to time is they're only going to target billionaires. They're only going to target big companies. I'll be fine as your garden variety rich guy. There's one guy who disagrees with you. I'm going to tell you all about it. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. More at nomadcapitalist.com. Make that 2 guys, by the way, because I'm one of the other guys who believes that any kind of new tax the government implements, I don't care if it's a global minimum tax on corporations, which is going to start out on big companies, and I think it'll take a while, but I think eventually you'll start to see pressure on at least some of the smaller tax havens. We've been saying the days of the BVIs and the Belizes are largely over, except for certain limited applications, holding companies, things like that. But people think, hey, listen, the wealth tax, they just want to target billionaires in the U.S. I think it was Ron Wyden in the Senate. Let's just go after guys with $1 billion. Obviously, other politicians have said 20 million, 50 million. In Canada, it was 10 million. In the UK, they said if you're as little as £500,000, we're going to come after you for a wealth tax. But I do see people thinking, hey, it's not going to cover me. Now, if you're saying that and you are concerned about these kind of taxes, chances are it will eventually creep down to you. And here's an article from, this is AM 740, KTRH in Houston. I remember this from my radio days. Big, powerful signal, AM 740 in Houston. B.D. Hobbs says, so you think you'll be safe from wealth taxes? Think again. Now, this is not an objective article. This is an opinion piece. And I'm not sure who B.D. Hobbs is, but he says, with inflation and gas prices at near record highs, you'd think that at the very least, you could be safe from higher taxes. But think again. With Joe Biden, the Democrats getting closer to passing their massive spending bill, they continue to use what is now the Democrat company line. We're only going to tax the wealthy. That is not possible. Now, we've talked before. I don't like to get into politics. I left to not deal with politics, and I will tell you this. If you leave and follow my footsteps, unless you also create a YouTube channel and podcast and website that speaks to people who want to know what's going on, you can go and you can somewhat bury your head in the sand from all of this. Now, if you're an American, you've still got to report your bank accounts, and you've still got to file a tax return. You have some tax planning that you have to do. But you can largely get away from the politics of what Ron Wyden is saying, or what Bernie Sanders is saying, or what whatever politician in the UK or Justin Trudeau or whatever they're saying down there in Australia. You can do that. But no doubt the issue that I see with politicians in Western countries is, yes, they want to pander for votes, and the U.S. to me is the worst. I mean, you can go to high-tax European countries. Everyone is largely paying something, by and large. In the United States, almost 2/3 of people in 2020 didn't pay any federal tax. And by the way, when I mentioned that, I was doing an interview for a major newspaper recently, and the response was, but what about Elon Musk? What about one guy compared to over 100 million people who paid nothing while claiming to say, well, if I'm paying my taxes, why shouldn't he? No, you didn't pay taxes. And that's exactly what the politicians want you to think. That's not possible, says B.D. Hobbs. When politicians say they're going to tax the rich, they haven't finished the sentence, says Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. We're going to tax the rich first, then you. That's where they make their money. They always start by promising they're only going to tax the rich, and then they end up taxing everyone. And I remember that. There's one story I've told before. I was in Turkey back in, I think, just 2012. I think it was Turkey. And I was sitting next to a guy. I was flying somewhere within Turkey. And this guy worked for, I think it was the United Nations. The story gets fuzzier over the years, but I remember the punchline. And I said, he was talking about these different social issues, and I said, listen, okay, I agree with you. Let's open up rights for people. I said, I've been watching this for 15 years. I was reading about this issue in Time magazine when I was in high school, 1999, 2000. What's taking so long? He's like, listen, no. He says you have to kind of feed people one crumb at a time. You know where you're trying to go, but you got to feed them one crumb. That's how you win in politics. You don't just say, hey, let's have gay marriage. Hey, let's raise taxes on everybody. You got to kind of go one crumb at a time. And then when it comes to taxes, you got to come out and you got to smack everybody later. That's how they make their money, says Grover Norquist. They promise they're only going to tax the rich, and then they start taxing everyone. Now, again, in this era of high inflation, I mean, look at what's happened over the years. Another example we've talked about before is the alternative minimum tax. In the U.S., they put this tax into place at one point because they said, listen, we're not going to let you throw deductions and other stuff. If you make a certain amount of money, we're going to restrict what you can do to reduce your taxes. And what started out as a very high number eventually became a very middle-class number, especially if you're living in an expensive part of the country. This is how these things work. I mean, certainly we've talked about how the U.S. raises the expat tax exclusions every year and the expat numbers, but some of these numbers don't get raised, and with the way the dollar is going and the way that a lot of fiat currencies are going, it will de facto hit more and more people over time. On top of the fact that once you can tax a billionaire on their wealth, you know what? What's 100 million? And people go along with it. It's like the old poem. Who's going to speak up for the guy with 100 million if they don't speak up for the guy with $1 billion? Eventually, it's going to make its way to you. While the wealth tax, the article continues, may look good on paper, the reality is there aren't even enough wealthy Americans in the United States to cover what the Democrats want to spend and, more importantly, redistribute. Another lie is that businesses will pay for most of it, or as President Biden says, pay their share, or pay their fair share. They never can tell you what the fair share is. What is a fair share? If it's so fair, give me a number. Tell us what the number is. If you have a guess of what the number is, if you know what the number is, leave a comment below. I want to know what you think their number is. I think it might be not. Listen, was it Bill de Blasio came out and said he wants 80% taxes? And okay, Bill de Blasio didn't win anything, but he said 80% taxes because hey, it was 90 or 91 under the Eisenhower administration. If that's not bad enough, the Democrats also want to sneak in what they call a tax of unrealized gains. We've talked about this before. Basically, if you own a home and it goes up in value, you'll pay tax on it, regardless of whether or not you tap into your equity. The same will apply to the value of your 401k. I'm not convinced that they wouldn't make some kind of exclusion for this because the real estate lobby is so strong in the U.S. And again, the politicians want to make sure that as few people are paying this as possible. 401ks, absolutely. I think some people don't even know they have a 401k, honestly. I really do. And I also think that some of these guys overstate, they say, 100 million people have 401ks. Yeah, I've known plenty of people throughout the course of my life who have $9,000 in there, okay? I don't think they're too concerned about it. But 401ks, businesses, art, crypto, whatever it is, yep, unrealized capital gains. Closer to home here in Texas, where I guess Mr. Hobbs lives, as part of the radical Green New Deal, Biden has threatened to tax the big oil companies to punish them for climate change. This is one area where I like to do my part. I don't have a car, not because necessarily I'm trying to prevent climate change, but I'm happy if that's a byproduct of it. I try and avoid buying lots of plastic stuff. I like to use reusable containers. Listen, I'm all for let's do our part. I have found projects that I think, are good for helping the environment. It's part of my charitable mix. What I've never understood is why we need to raise a bunch of taxes so that the AOCs and Bernie Sanders and all the other progressive politicians of the world can wet their beaks on the tax dollars while they're solving climate change. Why don't we just solve climate change? Why? I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't some things that I might not agree with us doing to help out. But I don't understand why every kind of change has to have a tax attached to it. That's what I don't get. Anyway, he continues, gasoline taxes are not taxes on gasoline. They're taxes on people who buy gasoline, Grover Norquist said. So when Biden tells you that those big oil companies are going to pay for the massive tax increases, he knows better than that. I don't know if he does. But he is hoping that you don't. And he's probably right in most cases, unfortunately. Norquist also points that the Democrats don't want you to know what's in these massive bills. I don't even think they know what's in the massive bills. I mean, look at some of these tax bills that have passed over the years. I don't think they know exactly who it's targeting. I think there's been tax bills that were designed to target big companies that nail small businesses. Nobody knows. They find out later, oops. And, it takes so long to get this stuff through that... what are you going to do? This is why I like small countries. They get tax cuts through efficiently. He doesn't. But anyway, Norquist also points that the Democrats don't want to know what's in these massive bills they're trying to ram through. I don't think anything that's happening in Congress, that's what they're doing. Because when you compare the U.S. code to laws in other countries, this is why I like other countries. They keep things more simple. Many other countries, it's much more simple. The worst things are more likely to come in the last moment when you have no time to react. This is what the politicians are doing, and this is who the people voted for. Now, listen, there are tax increases that have gone in under Republicans. So as someone who does not have a dog in the fight in the U.S., it's not my country, I don't get a vote anymore. I'm not here to point the finger at Democrats, Republicans. Certainly Joe Biden has said he wants to raise your taxes. He has so far not entirely succeeded, but the genie's out of the bottle. And it's out there. And there are other politicians who will be there after he no longer is to push what he wants or even higher tax rates. And it's cultural. There's a difference. I mean, people are upset in the U.S. and Western countries. Their governments are broke in a way that not every country in the world is. And the taxes are going to get worse. So here are actually two more experts, the article writer, Grover Norquist, and third, myself, who believe that even though in the United States and even in some other countries, some of the wealth taxes proposed haven't gone through yet, it's probably not over yet. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.